Here I am again, guys. Today's lecture is going to be on health. Now, I have divided it into physical, let me get my pen on here, and also you can't really see mental health on here. Today I want to talk about physical health. I broke it into two parts again, and then I'll continue with physical health and finish up with mental health on the second half. Now, like I said, I'm going to talk about physical health only today. And when I talk about physical health, I talk about two different terms. Morbidity or morbidity rate is the illness rate. How sick are you? And mortality is just like it sounds, the death rate. Okay, and so they looked at these two different rates within the health literature. And so that's what I'm going to compare as we talk about how men and women differ with respect to health. Okay, so one of the things, you probably might have already known this, is that men die at younger ages than women. So that's your mortality rate right there. And that women, actually, you might not have known this, have a higher rate of sickness than men do. And so that's your morbidity rate right there. So I'll talk about why these two things occur as we go through. But if you look at this chart, I think you can see there's been a consistent gap from 1911 to 2011 where girls outlive guys by about 5 years or so. Okay, so we talk about the leading causes of death here in the United States of America. I know this is kind of a heavy trip, but there's three. CVD, or cardiovascular disease, is the first one I'm going to talk about. And then there's cancer. And finally, we'll end up talking about accidents. Okay, so on this chart, if you can see it, in 2013, sometimes statistics like these run at least about 5 years or so behind. But anyway, 28% of deaths are CVD, cardiovascular disease, and 23 are cancer. Well, that's half the deaths in the United States of America due to just two things. So the accidents are really, really small. Maybe people overestimate those, and if you were in my social psychology class, I would go into that in more detail. Now, I think I have another chart here. See, heart disease, number 1, 2012 and 13, cancer, number 2, and then injuries is down here. Now, I think the first one, okay, we're finally at it, cardiovascular disease, like I've been calling it, CVD. That's how I'm going to refer to it. Now, when you look at, I forgot I had it on here, cardiovascular disease or CVD, this is kind of true for everything. Men die younger than women from all these things, but as far as the test goes, remember this, that men die from heart complications and circulatory factors at a higher rate than women do at a young age. Now, women outnumber men in fatal strokes. Why would that be? Well, I'm the wrong person to ask because I'm at daily mass all the time hanging out with widows. And I know a lot of them, and a lot of them are my closest friends, and they're 80 years old or so, and a lot of them have had strokes. So see, up until 75, from here up here, the blue is bigger than the red. That means men are dying younger. But then all of a sudden around 75, if you look, then the red is bigger than the blue. Well, guys aren't living that long. And so you have to live long enough to maybe, have these complications that are related to strokes. Now, why are men dying at younger ages than women? There's two different factors that they've brought up, and it's kind of funny, but until recently, men smoked a lot more. And so smoking, it's not only gives you cancer, but it also complicates, your heart and circulatory system. The other thing, they're like, Tim, they like a high-fat diet. Like, if it was up to me, I would eat at Portillo's every fucking day. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to eat healthy. And so this unhealthy diet coupled with smoking has led to a lot more complications for men. Okay, here we go, guys. We're going to talk about stress. I really like talking about it, but I don't deal well with it. Some people seem like they're stoic. Like my chiropractor, I love him to death. Great Christian man, but he's just like into this stoicism thing. I'm a big old drama queen. My shit goes ballistic, when I get under stress. And So when I talk about this, I usually show this statistic. If you've been in my other classes, you probably see me showing it. 85% of illness in the United States of America, according to the CDC, I don't know how much you trust them now, is stress related. I was like, wow, that's like a really big number. And so I've always been fascinated with this because it also relates to a lot of the things I teach in my intro class and religion class. Now, stressors are things that freak you out. Like right now, I'm stressed out about my car because, like, I was in a big accident and I had $20,000 worth of work, but it doesn't seem like it's dry. I don't know. You know how it goes. That doesn't cause me less energy. It tweaks me up. It's like, oh my God, I feel like I've been smoking crystal meth. You know what I mean? And so I get all these stressors on me, especially right now during this, part of history, in the COVID virus, that a lot of people are stressed out. Their energy is going way up. They need to calm down. Now, there's this mind body link that I really want to talk about. In religion, I would go mind body spirit, but we're not in my religion class right now. But that mind body link is where it starts. That goes back to that 85% that the CDC was talking about. And I want to bring in this term that I probably talked about already. Psycho comes from psyche, that's the mind part. Somatic comes from soma, that's the body. This is why, even in the coronavirus, even if I get it, I'm just going to go, I'm not going to get sick. I'm not going to die. I might die, but it's better to not tell yourself that you're going to, because sometimes you can your mind can trick your body into getting sick. We'll get into this a little bit later. Okay. Now, when I was first getting off of alcohol, because I used to drink all the time. I hate drinking. It's my least favorite drug. But this old man's like, alcoholism is a disease. And he goes, say the word. And he made me say it a bunch of times. He goes, okay, I go, disease. He goes, you're saying it wrong. And I kept saying it. He goes, there's not a Z in disease. Go say it with the S. And so dis-ease. Dis-ease. I've never thought about it like that. When you break this fucking word in half, something's not at ease. What's not at ease? Your fucking head. One time I was talking to Father Andre, and I love him to death. I said, Father Andre, I don't want to go to heaven. He goes, why? He goes, if you have to think with your fucking head, I don't want to be somewhere where I'm sitting there thinking, because I was up at 3 a.m. thinking just today. You know what I mean? I fucking hate thinking. But the thinking is the problem. This is why I think animals are smarter sometimes about how they cope with stress. Now, as you think in a diseased kind of way, it manifests as disease in your body. I don't want to go all Louise Hay on this, but I don't know. I have, come from a big, long line of New Age tradition too. I mean, I went to Peru with Carolyn May. She's all into chakra healing, this, that, and the other. But anyway, the idea, disease in your head, disease starts to manifest in your body. Now, how does this happen? Well, what I want to talk about specifically is this area called immunosuppression. I have this little cutesy thing. This is a white blood cell, and so when you get stressed out, it pushes down kind of our white blood cells or our immune function. Now, for some of y'all, this should be old hat, and even in this class, I taught some of this, right? So in the first test, we have our friends, the hypothalamus and pituitary. Hopefully you remember that. And the hypothalamus detects imbalances. And so the pituitary gland, the master gland, I hope you remember this too. One of the glands that it works or, controls are the adrenal glands. They're right here by your kidneys. Sorry about that. And what do the adrenal glands produce? Well, adrenaline is one thing. Stressed out, adrenaline rush. If you suffer from panic attacks, here I am right here. You know what I'm talking about. That targets various body tissues like your lungs and your heart rate and all these other kinds of things. And usually there's a turn-off loop. That's also, I don't want to get into panic attacks, but that's the problem. You can't turn it off when it turned on accidentally. Okay, so this is kind of a simplification of the process, but when we're stressed out in our head up here, then the next thing you know, we're overproducing right here. Now, it seems like, okay, that's good for a while, but not always. Now, if you remember from intro, that's fight or flight energy. You need that. So sometimes when you're stressed out, you need that increase in adrenal gland activity, but you don't always need it. So the other thing I usually don't focus on is cortisol. This one right here, pick a different color pen. And cortisol is known as the stress hormone. So if we follow people's cortisol levels, we would know exactly how stressed out they were, right? We could look at adrenaline levels, I guess, but maybe that's not as easy to measure. So these two different things, cortisol is the one that's a real bugaboo, because this is the one that actually is driving down white blood cell count. Why is that important? Well, when we fight off disease, disease, it's like our dis-ease up here is causing the Z1 down here. It's killing our white blood cells. I hope you like that following me right now. Now, one kind of white blood cells that they look at are T cells. There's all kinds of white blood cells, lymphocytes, leukocytes, natural killer cells, all these. I started looking it up one day because of my nursing students. But let's just say that I can measure how many T cells you have, which they can, and this guy over here is a lot healthier than this guy. Well, guess what? This guy is more likely to get sick over here. And so in my religion class, I talk about this in more detail, and also my intro class. But you're having this mental reaction, dis-ease, the S one, and then all of a sudden it's causing the disease. And it's not just magic, there's a biological underpinning to this whole thing. Okay, I just wanted to say a few final things about this section, and I'm the wrong person to ask about coping, but when coping, strategies come into play, it's targeting this dis-ease up here. Hopefully it's going to target the disease in your body too. And so that's why I keep focusing on this word and breaking it apart, the S in it. Because the dis-ease up here is what's causing your body to become sick. And once again, I think I have this on here, psychosomatic. I love that it has psycho on here. Once you go psycho, it's not good for your soma, your body. And so that's why I'm always the other way around. Even if I'm getting sick, I'm going to go, it's not going to last for long. You know what I mean? I just kind of trick my mind into being healthier. There's all this kind of research. I could go into a whole nother lecture right now. I'm sure you don't want to hear it right now. But anyway, if I could be at a sense of ease, then that has to help my body. I'm not going psycho up here, so my soma is a lot better. Now, this area is called Immuno Enhancement, and I'm not going to go into it in much detail, but in my other class, I talk about how if you can be at ease, there's actually a lot of research that shows these people are physically healthier from a scientific perspective. Okay. Now, the last section with respect to stress is type A personalities. Maybe some of y'all have heard of this, but I think it kind of relates to gender. Because type A people are real stressed out. They kind of like it though. They feed off of stress. They're real aggressive. They push themselves, personal best. I'm kind of type A in a way. People don't have to tell me to do stuff. It might seem like I'm real laid back and easygoing, but most of the time I'm sitting there worrying and freaking out and doing this, that, and the other. I'll go into type C, but we're not in my intro class. But type A versus type B, real aggressive, stressed out versus mellow and laid back. Well, it just makes sense that type A's would be a lot less healthier, and they are. They're more successful in a lot of respects, but they're less healthy. And I always think about football coaches because the most, aggressive ones are the ones that are losing their shit all the time. A lot of the times are the most successful ones, but they're also compromising their immune function. And not just their immune function. I think I have this on the next slide. It's their coronary heart function too. So that's how it specifically relates to CVD. You're getting all stressed out. You have adrenaline and cortisol and all this stuff pumping through your system, and it's targeting your heart all the time because you're always angry and everything else. That's like me a lot of the times, and it's not good for your circulatory system. Okay, that's everything for this section. We're going to finally move on to number 2, which is cancer. Wow, I got tired. There was a lot of information in that first section on CVD, but I like that stuff on stress. So like I promised, the second section is going to be on cancer. It's a lot more straightforward. Once again, men die more early deaths from cancer. I mean, you could just guess that on the test on all of them and probably be right. But women are catching up, and in some kinds of cancer, they, outnumber men, reproductive cancer, breast cancer, stuff like this. And so I have this little chart. I know you can't see it down here, but this is 2013, and it's showing the different kinds of cancers between men and women. Okay, so just keep in mind, men die earlier, women reproductive and breast cancer. Now, why do men die earlier from cancer? Well, it's our same two friends, you know what I mean? But now I want to expand just a little bit on it because smoking is the first friend, and smoking accounts for 30% of cancers, 1/3 of cancer. It's like, wow, that's a lot, you know what I mean? But 70% are something else, so it's not all smoking. But until recently, I mentioned this before, more men smoke than women, but now women have caught up. And actually, for women, I think I have this on here, it's the #1 killer of women, even more than breast cancer, it's saying right here. Nobody talks about it. It's like, but it's increasing amongst women and it's killing more women. But everybody's talking about breast cancer. I understand it, the Susan G. Komen and all this other stuff, but it's a big thing. If you look right here, you see the gap between men and women smokers in 2010 is a lot smaller than it was in 1975, right down here. Okay, the second friend that we have is high-fat diets, Tim's best friend. But this is what really blows my mind, and some of y'all are into this. 35% of cancer, more than smoking, is due to your diet. It's like, wow. I don't know. There's all these different, specials out there I could get into that are on the internet, but golly, that's crazy. If you just ate right, you can prevent cancer. And so if you add high fat diets and smoking, that's like 60-something%, almost 70% you're pushing of all the cancers just from two things. Okay, and so this meat and potatoes diet or whatever, the traditional male diet where you don't eat any vegetables, you know what I mean? Whatever else it is. Okay, so the third area, which is real simple too, are accidents and violence. But remember, I think they only accounted for about 5% of the deaths in the United States. I think that was the statistic I showed you. And so this is the one that I want to show you for this section. Men are 3 times more likely than women to die a violent death. It's like, wow, kind of makes sense to me. They give 4 reasons in the textbook by Linda Brannon for why down here men die more violent deaths than women. One of them is they just have riskier jobs. Like, I'll show that on the next slide. If you're a construction worker or a logger or even fishing, there's a lot of dangerous jobs that men do. They have lower seatbelt use, you know what I mean? I don't know if that's still true, but that's one of the things they cited. Greater alcohol consumption, you do stupid shit when you're drunk, and involved in more illegal activity down here. Okay, I think I have one more slide for this section. I don't know if you want to consider it accidents or violence, but it's kind of in this section, I think. Oh, I forgot I had this chart on here. I lied to you. See, here's logging workers, fishers, pilots. You can see how many men are dying. Now, women die a lot more for some reason as sales workers and truck drivers. I don't know why that one's bigger over here, but anyway, you see men die a lot more often because they're in riskier occupations. Hopefully you can kind of see that. This is 2012. See, this is what I thought I had on here. It's not really accidents, it's not really violence, it's suicide. And the only thing I'll say from the literature is that men tend to commit suicide where women tend to attempt it. And the only explanation I have seen, for why there's this difference is like the method you choose. If you jump off a bridge or use a gun, it's probably going to kill you, but maybe if you take pills, you get your stomach pumped, whatever. So maybe men pick more dangerous methods, not always, but that could relate to that give them hell part of the stereotype and all those other things that we talked about with men. Okay, I'm getting kind of tired, but this is the last section, seeking treatment. And seeking treatment, when you look at men versus women, it's been well documented that women go to the doctor more than men. Now, at first glance, you might go, oh, well, they're sicker than men. But that's not true. What it really means is Women go to the doctor more often than men. Now, this drives up the morbidity rates because when you're at the doctor, you're there because you're sick. Men just sit at home sick and just take it, or they just pretend like they don't have an illness. And so there's a lot of research in this area as far as how men and women are different with respect to taking care of themselves. Now, why do women go to the doctor more? There's two different reasons that Linda Brannon proposed. Number one is gynecology. Guys don't have an analogous process. They don't have to go to the man doctor. Now I do. I have to go to the urologist all the time. But when you're a young man, it's not like when you're a young woman. You have to get used to taking care of your reproductive health in a proactive fashion. And so that kind of transfers over into a lot of other kinds of health that you have. Now, I kind of buy into that one. The second one I buy into more, that women are more suited to the role of patient. Maybe they're not more suited, but men aren't suited to the role of patient because now you're giving up your power and your authority. And it's like if you're a sturdy oak, it's like, I'm tough. I just go through anything. I don't need any medicine. And so a lot of that mentality, especially with veterans, is coming back from the war, they're resistant to taking especially mental health advantage of mental health opportunities that they have. Okay, so enough about that slide. I think this is the very last slide for the day, and it kind of echoes what I've been saying, that women tend to be more proactive about their health. They get out in front of it. They take preventative measures, whereas men are real retroactive. It's like, I'm not going to do anything as long as I feel fine. I think that's where there's big impetus on prostate cancer because men just don't want to go and you have to get early detection and that you can be asymptomatic. I've been there a bunch of times, trust me. But anyway, that's everything for this lecture. I'll see you next time for part 2.